There is a specific kind of loneliness that has nothing to do with being alone. You can stand in a crowded room, surrounded by voices and laughter, and still feel like a ghost. Not invisible exactly, but translucent. People look at you, they speak to you, they might even claim to know you, yet something essential remains untouched. They see your face, but miss your eyes. They hear your words, but never catch the tremor beneath them. You exist in their world, but you do not feel real in it. This is the quiet ache of those who are rarely truly seen. It is not about being ignored or overlooked in the obvious ways. It is subtler than that, more devastating, because the world acknowledges your presence while somehow missing your essence entirely. You learn early that showing up is not the same as being witnessed. That being known by name does not mean being understood in spirit. Often this begins in childhood. A child reaches for connection, holding up a drawing, a thought, a feeling, but the parent is distracted, overwhelmed, or emotionally unavailable. The child receives a polite nod, a vague smile, but no true engagement. The moment passes. The child learns that their inner world is not interesting enough to warrant full attention. Psychologists describe this as emotional neglect, but it rarely looks dramatic. There is no shouting, no cruelty, just a steady, quiet absence of depth. The child adapts by learning to expect less. They stop reaching. They start performing instead. If this perspective resonates, you can support the video by liking it. Over time, the person who grows from that child becomes someone skilled at reading others, but struggles to be read themselves. They notice everything: the shift in tone, the flicker of discomfort on someone's face. They become fluent in emotional translation, experts in what others need. Yet, when it comes to their own inner life, they remain a foreign language no one bothers to learn. Attachment theory suggests that early relational experiences shape how we expect to be treated. If caregivers consistently failed to attune to emotional nuance, the child internalizes a belief that their feelings are secondary, perhaps even burdensome. So they learn to edit themselves. They share the acceptable parts and bury the rest. They laugh when others laugh. They nod when others speak. But inside, there is a longing so deep it feels like hunger. The longing to be asked the question no one ever asks. Not how are you, but who are you beneath all of this? They rarely receive that question, and even when it comes, they have forgotten how to answer honestly. Comment unseen if this describes your experience. People who rarely feel seen develop a specific relationship with conversation. They listen deeply, almost compulsively. They remember details others forget: birthdays, fears, the small stories people tell in passing. They hold space for others with a tenderness that feels almost sacred. But when the conversation turns to them, something shifts. They offer surface-level truths, safe summaries. They have learned that depth is risky, that vulnerability is often met with misunderstanding, or worse, discomfort. So they protect their inner world by keeping it hidden, even from those who claim to care. This creates a paradox. The very people who long to be seen become masters at deflection. They ask questions to avoid being asked. They make others feel heard to avoid the terror of not being heard themselves. Research on emotional labor shows that people who consistently prioritize others' needs often experience what is called self-silencing. They suppress their own emotional expression to maintain relational harmony. Over time, this silencing becomes automatic. They no longer consciously choose to hide. they simply do. There is a strange grief that comes with this. Not the grief of losing someone, but the grief of never having been fully met. They look back on relationships, friendships, even family connections, and realize they were always the listener, the supporter, the safe space. But who held space for them? Who asked the deeper questions? Who noticed when their smile did not reach their eyes? The answers are often painful. Few, sometimes none. Type YES if this helped you understand something about yourself. What makes this experience particularly isolating is that it is difficult to name. How do you explain to someone that you feel unseen when they believe they see you? How do you articulate the difference between being acknowledged and being understood? The language for this kind of loneliness does not exist in casual conversation. So it remains unspoken, a private ache carried in silence. Some people respond to this chronic lack of depth by withdrawing. They stop trying to be known. They convince themselves that solitude is safer than shallow connection. Others become chronic overextenders, endlessly giving in the hope that eventually someone will reciprocate the depth they offer. But reciprocity rarely arrives, because people can only meet you as deeply as they have met themselves, and most have not traveled far into their own inner worlds. Neuroscience tells us that feeling truly seen activates the brain's reward centers. It releases oxytocin, the bonding hormone. It signals safety and belonging. When this experience is rare or absent, the nervous system learns to expect disconnection. The person becomes hypervigilant. They scan conversations for proof that once again they have been missed, and often they find it. If someone you know might benefit from this, feel free to share it. There is a quiet strength in people who rarely feel seen, though they seldom recognize it. They possess a depth of awareness that others lack. They understand nuance. They notice the things most people ignore, but this strength comes at a cost. They walk through life feeling like they are speaking a language no one else understands, and over time, they may stop speaking it altogether. Yet, something within them refuses to disappear entirely. There remains a small, stubborn part that hopes, that watches for the person who will ask the right question, who will listen not just to respond, but to understand, who will see beyond the performance and recognize the human underneath. That hope, fragile as it is, keeps them searching, even when the search feels endless. The truth is, being truly seen requires two things: someone willing to look deeply and someone willing to be seen. For those who rarely experience this, the second part can be the hardest, because vulnerability has been weaponized before. Openness has led to disappointment. So even when someone genuinely tries to see them, they may instinctively retreat. They may test the connection, offering small pieces of truth to see if they will be held or dropped. If this gave you clarity, comment, witness below. Healing does not mean suddenly being seen by everyone. It means learning to see yourself, to acknowledge your own depth without needing external validation, to recognize that your inner world has value, even if others do not always perceive it. This is not resignation. It is reclamation, the slow, tender work of becoming your own witness. And perhaps in that self-witnessing, something shifts. The desperation eases. The hunger softens. Not because the longing disappears, but because it is no longer the only source of meaning. You begin to trust that even if the world does not fully see you, you see yourself. And that quiet act of internal recognition becomes its own form of belonging. If this resonates, like the video to help it reach others who might need this perspective. What moment made you realize you were rarely truly seen? And if you value psychological explorations like this, subscribe for more reflections on the hidden patterns that shape our inner lives.